Namaste, hello yogis. Welcome to part 2 of your journey to Hanumanasana or splits. And in part 2 we're working another key part of the body to get you into this pose, and this is the front of the hips here, the hip flexors. And the back leg in splits, the hip flexors on the back leg are really working. And it's easy to forget about the back leg because all the sensation feels like it's in the front leg, in the hamstrings. But in order to get into the pose fully, the back leg is really active as well. Okay, so we'll get moving. So a little bit of preparation. You're going to need your block or your alternative prop, maybe a thick book, the same sort of thickness as the yoga block. So we're coming into Virasana, hero pose. So the knees are about hip distance, and we are going to sit on the block because we're just warming up. So get the block the medium way, sit the bottom back, and then hopefully you don't feel any strain in the knees because the hips are a bit lifted here. But importantly, you should start to feel some kind of gentle opening in the hip flexors here. Push the tops of the feet down. And we're just going to do a little breathing exercise while we're here, so we're multitasking. We're going to do alternate nostril breathing, Nadi Shodhana. So I'm going to take my right hand, the first two fingers between the eyes, between the eyebrows, and the thumb and the ring finger just rest just above the nostrils. So you can close the eyes. I'll talk you through one round. But when I say close the nostril, I don't mean completely close it. I just mean gently press down just above the nostril, just so you're sort of restricting the airflow on that side. Okay, so take a normal breath. Get the hands or the fingers into position. You can rest the other hand on the leg or at the heart center. Okay, so to start, gently close the right nostril. We inhale through the left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. That's one round. We continue inhaling through the left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. One more round. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. And then carefully release your hand, opening the eyes, breathe normally. And just notice if your nostrils feel more in alignment now, because normally one nostril is dominant and that changes throughout the day. Okay, and then just lift the hips, place the block to one side for now, coming onto your hands and knees, making sure the shoulders are over the wrists. Learn to do a cross diagonal balance. So engaging your core, look forward and extend your right leg back, flex the foot, and then extend the left arm forward. So finding your balance here, really pull the front of the body in, engaging the core. And you can stay there, or maybe you start to bend the back leg so you get some activity in that hip flexor, and then reach that left arm round. The left hand clasps the right ankle, and then flexing the foot, then maybe push the foot into the hand so you get a little bit of a chest opening and that right hip flexors are working. Good, and then release. And we change sides, so this time the left leg reaches back, flexing the foot. Reach the right arm forward, finding your core to support the back and find your balance. And then maybe you start to bend that left leg. Reach the right arm round, find the ankle, push the foot gently into the hand to really open the left hip flexors and the chest and find your balance. Good, and then carefully release. And again we tuck the toes and we push the hips up and back into downward facing dog. So this is the first one, so we can pedal the feet a little bit. Like I said in part one, the key to really good forward bends is length in the spine. It's not all about the back of the legs. And the same goes for downward facing dog, this inversion. It's lifting the hips up so you can really lengthen the spine. The weight moves back into the legs so you're not taking all the weight in the arms. Try to think about pulling the front of the body in rather than sticking the chest out. So we pull the front of the body in and then we look forward. You can bend the legs as much as you need to, or lift the heels and try to tiptoe forward. To forward bend. Lengthen the spine. Fold forward. Keeping the legs bent if you need to, but keep that length in the spine. Good, and then slowly start to uncurl. One vertebra at a time, bringing your head up last. Hands to your heart center. Good. Okay, so standing with your feet together, mountain pose Tadasana. Inhale, reach the arms up, lift up. Exhale, hinging from your hips, lengthening the spine forward. Release into forward bend, Uttanasana. Inhale onto the fingertips, half forward bend. Exhale, releasing down. Bend your legs so you can bring the hands flat. Step back to plank pose, top of a push-up. Look forward. And then lift the hips up and back. And you're aiming to get the heels down, but it doesn't matter if they don't come down. The key, as always, is to lengthen the spine. Lift the hips high. Take the weight back to the legs. And then we step the right foot forward and carefully drop that back knee down and we lift up. And maybe you just need to bring that right foot back a bit so that you look like the right leg is at a 90-degree angle. And bring the top of the back foot flat. Really push the top of the back foot into the floor. And then we need a slight pelvic tilt so we can really lengthen the spine. Take your hands lightly to your ribs and just feel like you're pulling or gently pushing the ribs back. And then take the arms forward without sticking the chest out. So keep the ribs in and just bring the arms up. So it might feel a bit more restricted than normal because we're keeping the ribs in. We're pushing the top of the back foot down to open the hip flexors on the left leg. Good, and then carefully bring the hands down, lift the back knee, step back to plank, look forward, and then lift the hips Up and back into downward facing dog, Ardha Mukha Svanasana. Hips lift, inner thighs lift, spine lengthens. Spread the fingers evenly, push the inner palm into the floor. And this time we step the left foot forward, drop that back knee down, and we lift up. Just shorten the stance a little bit so that left leg is at 90 degrees, the top of the right foot is down. Good, so you should start to feel the opening in that hip flexor. We very slightly tuck that pelvis so the lower spine lengthens. We take the hands to the ribs, encourage the ribs inwards. And then we take the arms forward, inhale, lift the arms up without sticking the chest out. So keep the ribs pulling in, push the top of the right foot into the floor. Good, and then we lean forward, bring the hands down, lift the back knee, step back to plank. Look forward, heels back, and then lift the hips high as you can. Maybe the heels don't come down, but you've got that length in the spine. Into downward facing dog, Ardha Mukha Svanasana. Good, and then look forward. Step the feet towards the top of the mat. Inhale, half forward bend, lengthen the spine. Really lengthen. Exhale, fold over into forward bend, Uttanasana, but lengthening out of that low back. Inhale, floating the body up. Exhale, hands to the heart centre. Bring the feet together, bend the legs, sweep the fingertips and extend the arms into chair pose, Utkatasana. So weight back in the heels, chest lifted. Try to take some of the curve out of that low back so you really engage the front of the body. Good, and then we start to come lower, lengthen the spine, fold over the legs, straighten the legs or towards straight, forward bend, Uttanasana. Inhale onto the fingertips, half forward bend. Exhale, releasing down. Step back to plank pose, top of a push-up. Heels back, chest forward, engage the front of the body. And then keeping the heels lifted, lift the hips up, push the weight back into the legs, and then maybe the heels drop at the last moment. Ardha Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And then we step the right foot forward, drop the back knee to the floor, but keep the fingertips down. And this time release the hips more forward and down for a moment, lengthen the spine. And then we're going to move dynamically to straighten the right leg, but you should feel the hip flexors on the left leg opening here in this position. And then we inhale, straighten the right leg, staying on the heel so the toes are lifted. Maybe the body folds over that right leg. And then we exhale back into that lunge. And again, inhale, straighten. Exhale into the lunge. Inhale, straighten, moving the hips back. The right hip crease moves back. And we exhale into the lunge. And once more. Inhale, straighten, lengthen the spine. Maybe you fold over that right leg. And then we release back into the lunge. Bring the hands flat. Lift the back knee. Step back to plank. And then push the hips up high and back into downward facing dog, Ardha Mukha Svanasana. And then we step the left foot forward, Drop the back knee to the floor, keeping the fingertips down. Release the hips forward and down. Lengthen the spine. And then we start to move dynamically. So we shift the hips back slightly, straighten the left leg, come onto the left heel. Lengthen the spine. And then exhale, release into the lunge. So you should feel that right hip flexor or hip flexors opening here. Inhale, shift back, straighten the left leg, lengthen the spine. Exhale, release. Inhale, shift back. Maybe folding over that left leg. Exhale, release. Last time. Inhale back, flexing that left foot. Release back into the lunge. Lift the back knee, step back to plank. Lift the hips up and back. Downward facing dog. Ardha Mukha Svanasana. Taking a couple of deep breaths. And then looking forward, stepping or tiptoeing the feet forward. Inhale onto the fingertips, half forward bend. Exhale, release down, lengthening the spine. Inhale, floating the body up, reach the arms up. Exhale, hands to the heart center. Let's come into chair pose again, Utkatasana, feet together. So bend the legs, sit the bottom back, sweep the fingertips, extend the arms up, look at the fingertips, engage the front of the body, and then we start to lean forward, lengthening the spine, fold over, maybe you start to straighten the legs into that forward bend, Uttanasana. Inhale onto the fingertips, half forward bend. Exhale, releasing down, bend the legs if you need to. Step back to plank. Look forward, and then lift the hips up and back. Downward facing dog. Ardha Mukha Svanasana. Good, and look forward. Step your right foot forward, drop the back knee to the floor. Now just turn your right foot out, bring it a little, quite wide actually, almost to the edge of the mat, and the right toes turn out. But try to keep that right hip moving back. So we're going to come into a quad stretch here on the left leg, and that will open the hip flexors as well. So bring your left hand flat. Just gently, very gently with your right hand, push that right knee out so you start to open the hip a little bit. And then keep turning to your right, keep really lengthening the spine and opening. Reach your right arm back and then pick your left foot up, and then hopefully the foot and the hand can meet. And you can start to squeeze that left foot in towards the left hip. And that's really opening the front of the leg, the hip flexors, the quadriceps. Keep turning the body, squeezing that foot in. You can even bring the hand to the inside of that foot, if that helps. And the final option, if you're feeling quite open, you start to turn the chest more forward. Just notice if that makes any difference in the opening in the hip flexors on the left side. Final option, maybe come down onto the left forearm and then really squeeze that left foot into the left thigh. And all the time, obviously remembering to breathe using your pranayama to help you relax and release into these poses. and then very carefully releasing that left foot, bringing your hands flat, lift the back knee, step back to plank, and then lift the hips up and back, downward facing dog. Take a breath. And this time we step the left foot forward, drop the back knee, and again we wiggle that left foot to the edge of the mat and we turn the left toes out. So we are opening that left hip. Very, very gently just ease that left knee over to the left a little bit with the left hand before the quad stretch. And then you can start to turn the body to your left, lengthen the spine, open the chest. Maybe pick that back foot up, reach the left arm back, find the foot, and then very gently start to squeeze that foot in to the right thigh. Keep opening the chest. Breathe. You can stay there, or you can start to turn the body forward, bring the left hand to the inside of the right foot. So you're just changing the angle slightly. You're maybe intensifying the stretch in the quadriceps. And final option, maybe come down onto the right forearm. These are just options though, so just stay with what feels comfortable for you. Breathing. Good, and then very carefully releasing that right foot down, hands flat, lift the back knee, step back to plank pose, heels back, chest forward, and then lift the hips up and back, keep the hips lifted, and then at the last moment release the heels towards the floor. Ardha Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And then look forward, lift the heels, walk or tiptoe the feet to the top of the mat. Inhale onto the fingertips, half forward bend, lengthening the spine. Exhale, releasing down. Uttanasana. Inhale, floating the body up, reach the arms up. Exhale, hands to the heart center. Good. Feet together again. And this time we'll just inhale the arms forward, reaching up, lift up. Maybe if you feel like it, if the back's feeling okay, really lift out of the low back and just a little chest opening. So you lift out of the low back so you don't compress the spine. Good, and release, and then we hinge forward from the hips, releasing into that forward bend with a nice long spine. Inhale, half forward bend, look forward, lengthening. Exhale, releasing down, bend the legs if you need to so you can bring the hands flat. And then step back to plank. And lift the hips as high as you can into downward facing dog. Okay, so we step the right foot forward into a lunge, staying on the fingertips. So really make sure that back leg is strong, the right hip crease moves back. We're going to come up towards a high lunge. So first of all, lift the body up, bring the hands to the hips straight away, and then bend into that back leg before we come into the full lunge. So lower that left knee towards the floor, hands to the hips. So again, we're thinking about that tuck of the pelvis to lengthen the low back, and imagine someone had a string and they were gently pulling up to really lengthen you. You're lunging into that front leg, really engaging the core, front of the body, pull the ribs in, and then keeping all of these qualities. It might not go all the way at all, but we start to straighten the back leg without collapsing everything forward. So we keep everything engaged, the low back is lengthening, straighten the back leg, maybe the arms lift, maybe look up at the fingertips. Good, okay, and then look down, bring the hands down, step back to plank, and then lift the hips up, release the heels down, Ardha Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And then we change sides, left foot forward, staying on the fingertips, really make sure that back leg is strong before we start to come up. And then we lift up, bring the hands to the hips and bend straight away into that back leg, so the right knee bends down towards the floor. So you've really got to engage the core muscles here. That front thigh is working, the left thigh, you're lunging into it. We're tilting the pelvis slightly to lengthen out the low back. The ribs are pulling in. You're breathing. And see how that feels. You should definitely be feeling like the right hip flexors at the top of the thigh there are opening. If that feels enough, stay there. Otherwise, keeping these qualities, we start to work towards straightening the back leg. Maybe you raise the arms up, look up at the fingertips. Good, and then carefully hands down, step back to plank, push the hips up and back, and then release the heels, downward facing dog, Ardha Mukha Svanasana. Good, and then from here, carefully drop both knees down. Okay, so just for the final pose, we come back to where we started, but maybe we try without the block this time. So coming back to Virasana, because we've really warmed up the hip flexors now, so you should notice a difference in how it feels. So have the block ready in case you do feel like you need to sit on it. Otherwise, we might want to use it anyway under the shoulders, because we can try a recline variation. So have the knees about hip distance as you want to sit the bottom down in between the legs. So very carefully just move the calf muscles out of the way slightly so you can sit down, and then see how that feels. If it's too much on the knees, take the block, sit on the block again. Hopefully it feels okay. You can keep a nice long spine. And we don't want to just totally relax here. Everything needs to be active, so you need to push the tops of the feet into the floor, the shins pushing into the floor so the joints are really buoyant and active. And that's, enough work absolutely to stay there. If you are feeling a lot more open, you can start to take that block behind you, and then just see how it feels to start to come back. So you take your fingertips back. The key is to just lift the hips slightly and tilt the pelvis, so you're really opening the hip flexors here. Start to come back, see how it feels, keep pushing We don't want to bring the knees out wide, the knees need to stay about hip distance. Maybe you just come back onto the forearms and see how that feels. If that feels okay, you can release the shoulders back into that block and just drop the head back. So you've got a bit of a chest opening here, but keep pushing the shins into the floor, the tops of the feet, the pelvis is tucked under so the low back is lengthening. But whichever variation you're in, if you're still sitting, that's fine, but you should feel a nice opening in the hip flexors, and the class that we've done has really done the work to open those hip flexors. Remembering to breathe, start to slow the breathing down, bringing your attention back to your breath. Okay, if you're in this recline variation, very carefully come up onto your forearms first of all, and then carefully lift up into the seated variation. Just move the block to one side, and then everyone just come onto the hands and knees just to release everything. So just sway the hips from side to side. Maybe you just circle the hips and bring the body forward and then circle over to the other side. It feels quite nice just to move the hips and the spine. You can make it as little or as exaggerated as you want to. And then just circle the other way. Using your breath. Okay, and then just to close our practice, come into a seated position, cross-legged, Sukhasana, half lotus, full lotus, whichever option is comfortable for you. Just sit with a nice straight spine. Rest your hands on your knees. Let's just take a little side bend, so I'll mirror you. So take your right fingertips over to the right side. Raise your left arm up, reach up. Exhale over to the side. And lift up. Change sides, left fingertips over to the left. Reach your right arm up, reaching up. And then exhale, side bend to your left. And inhale, release. Join your hands at your heart center, your Anahata chakra. Bow your head towards your fingertips. Namaste. Thank you, yogis, and well done for finishing your session 2 of the journey to Hanumanasana, and I'll see you for part 3. Thank you.